Hello, my name is Tanner Littlejohn, and I am doing my presentation on Tim Burton. Tim Burton can very easily be described as an auteur. He involves himself in every aspect of the creative process of his films, and as a result, they often repeat different themes from one film to another. In her book, Tim Burton, The Monster and the Crowd, A Post-Jungian Perspective by Helena Basil Morizau, she claims that Tim Burton constantly uses the monster in the crowd type story. Monster in the crowd story being one individual against mainstream society, and that can definitely be seen in most of Tim Burton's films. He generally portrays society as bland, unimaginative, provincial, or metropolitan middle-class society. And the monster is anyone who tries to live an alternative lifestyle. Goth, a bohemian, anything. And most of his films are usually a clash between these two different groups. You can see that in Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas, and so on. From what I found out, Tim Burton got his start as an animator, and you can definitely see that because with most of his films he is very visually driven. He repeats a lot of the same visual cues throughout most of his films. Most of them have very dark, drab colors, lots of grays, blacks, and in a lot of films he also uses very bright colors to juxtapose with those. You can see that in Edward Scissorhands with the dark, drab Edward and the castle he comes from, and bright, happy, but bland suburbia. You can see that in Nightmare Before Christmas with Halloween Town contrasting with the bland, regular world and the bright, colorful Christmas Town. You can see that in Dark Shadows with the dark castle and the main character himself, and then more mainstream 1970s society. Other visual cues often include stripes, lots of stripes, and includes lots of macabre imagery. Spiders, bats, skulls, all sorts of those, and he uses them very often. What I found interesting is how Tim Burton is able to sort of walk this line between mainstream and counterculture. A lot of his films are generally described as cult films. According to Cinetes, one of the most generally agreed upon definitions is a cult film has a select but eccentrically devoted audience who engage in repeated screenings, celebratory rituals, and/or ironic reading strategies. Cult films are often strange, offbeat, or supposedly transgressive in content, in addition to sometimes being, intentionally or not, aberrant or challenging in form. And most of Tim Burton's films can definitely be described as that, but there's sort of this mentality that cult films are not initially successful at the box office and with mainstream audiences, but minority audiences later pick up on it, and that's how it gains a cult following. But Tim Burton isn't really like that. He's one of the top 10 highest grossing directors, so his films obviously make lots of money, but people still get that feeling that most of his films are cult films, even though they're commercially successful, which most cult films aren't. It's possible, perhaps, because he uses that monster in the crowd story so often, the one individual against the rest of mainstream society, that's how it still appeals to cult film audiences so much, and how they stay so successful after their initial release, while still being successful in mainstream eyes. That's all I really have to say. He's definitely an auteur. He uses lots of the same imagery in most of his films. I couldn't really think of many cinematography he repeats over and over again, but it's definitely lots of visual cues. The dark colors, the stripes, and that's all. Thank you for watching.